Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining. We appreciate that you are all here with us today. This workshop is the fourth and final module of the Empower Procurement Benchmarking Web Series. Today, we are joined by Renee and Smita from Energy Solutions. They are a partner of the Empower Procurement program. And Empower Procurement is a program of Prospect Silicon Valley that is funded by California Energy Commission. And the goal for these web series is to help organizations benchmark their procurement processes to determine what is and is not working in achieving their sustainability goals through purchasing. So in other words, if there's a gap between creating sustainability policies and tracking these impacts, we hope that these web series can highlight those gaps in helping the organization track those impacts. So I'd like to hand it off to Renee. But before I do, I'd like to mention that if you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat box below. And if you don't get to them immediately, we will definitely get to them at the end during the Q&A section. And this webinar is being recorded and it will be shared on empowerprocurement.com with the rest of these modules.
Hello, everybody, and you're in the right spot. Today, we will be digging into the next aspect of procurement challenges, but not to worry. If you weren't able to attend previous modules, they are available in recorded form, but we'll also be doing a recap as part of our presentation today. So this is meant to be a standalone as well. So my name is Renee LaFrenz, and I am joined by my colleague Smitha Patabanda. We're with Energy Solutions, and we're a key partner on the Empower Procurement project, which I'll describe in a moment. Energy Solutions is a energy efficiency firm based in Oakland, California, and we're focused on market-based solutions, including this one, digging into procurement issues. So as mentioned, I'll give you an introduction to the Empower Procurement program, and then we'll cover the roles, rules, tools framework, which is a framework we've put to our project, and in order to organize the challenges encountered along your procurement journey, covering some barriers and approaches. Spoiler alert, we'd love to hear from you about barriers you've encountered, and we can help you and your colleagues here on the phone as well. So be ready to participate, share your barriers, discuss. So we would love to, have a participatory section of this webinar when we get to the tail end. So again, welcome to our next installment of the Benchmarking for Carbon Conscious Purchasing webinar series. The goal of this course is to help you organizations benchmark your procurement processes to determine what's working, what's not working, and how we can achieve our sustainability goals through purchasing. While it might not seem obvious that organizations should be tracking their procurement, given the vast amount of resources involved, the reality is that many organizations experience a gap between creating sustainable policies and tracking the impact of products and services you acquire to reach energy efficiency goals. That's where we want to help. The presentation is the next installment of our Benchmarking 101, which was previously posted on our Empower Procurement website. And during this module, we'll be focusing on the tools part of the rules, and tools framework. You can go back to the partner slide. Empower Procurement is a program led by Prospect Silicon Valley and funded by the California Energy Commission. We help institutional organizations in California decarbonize your purchasing streams through a variety of procurement initiatives. This course has been developed by Energy Solutions as part of the Benchmarking Procurement Initiative and peer-reviewed by Berkeley National Laboratory. We also want to recognize all these other organizations on the team. So why procurement? California's $3 trillion economy is on track to reducing greenhouse gas emissions 90% by 2050. These are big goals, and what we buy certainly makes a difference. Okay, so let's start with procurement as a whole. As seen by the graphic on the right, and as you probably know based on experience, purchasing activities can have a large impact on your organization's greenhouse gas emissions and the triple bottom line. And people, planet, profit contribute to your organization's goals. So when it comes to sustainable procurement, considerations like cost, energy use, social diversity of suppliers, health and safety, local purchasing all come into play and all are competing priorities. And power procurement focuses on the energy piece, but these other aspects of a totally sustainable procurement program are given attention in our effort. Okay, so as you can see in the pie chart on the left, purchasing is over half of, contributes over half of the greenhouse gas emissions. The other half, of course, is operations. There's a few pathways to procurement, as you all know, and our program has a goal of working with organizations to identify key areas, perhaps upcoming large purchases, to zero in on resources that Empower Procurement can develop and help you to troubleshoot some issues you encounter, whether it is in your IT department, maintenance and operations, new construction, fleet management, and we've developed a number of procurement initiatives to aid in this resource development. We can help with things like streamlining contracting, understanding best practices for identifying service professionals, and best practices to follow for products procurement. Our procurement initiatives are led by Berkeley National Laboratory, Energy Solutions, and ZNE Alliance, and cover 6 main areas of focus for procurement. These are practices, contracts language, services, products, e-fleet management, and benchmarking. And some of the offerings, or the purpose of the offerings is to provide you planning and guidance, training, and really tailor what we do to your unique organization's goals. So that concludes my introduction to what the Power Procurement Program is. At this time, I'll pass to my colleague Smitha to dig into our focus for today, which is benchmarking, specifically the tools related to benchmarking your procurement.
Thanks, Renee, for that lovely overview of the Empower Procurement Program. Today, we're going to be talking about rules, and tools as a framework to implementing benchmarking. But first, why is benchmarking important? So why is benchmarking important? Benchmarking helps to evaluate and guide institutional decision-making. By implementing this process, your organization will be able to better understand the energy and greenhouse gas emissions implied by your purchasing decisions. This leads to a wider adoption of clean technologies and ultimately reduces an organization's overall carbon impact. When implemented effectively, it can also reduce spending and revolutionize your procurement process. Tracking and measuring various attributes of your purchases will enable your organizations to conduct 3 major analyses. First, it will allow you to understand where your spending is going. Can your organization be more efficient with certain purchases? Can you change the way you're purchasing? Can you change what you're purchasing in order to minimize your impacts? How can your organization save money on its key purchases? These are the type of questions benchmarking is designed to help answer by helping you analyze specific attributes, for instance, money. You may even find that the sustainable purchasing options are often the most cost-efficient options as well. Second, you can begin to track the greenhouse gas emissions of your purchases. If you have that information, you can minimize your company's environmental impacts by by opting for products that are GHG emission conscious, energy efficient, and or sustainably sourced. By tracking the specific energy attributes and greenhouse gas emissions associated with your purchases, you can calculate exactly how much each change to your procurement process will have to the overall company carbon footprint. This is also an excellent opportunity for your organization to address the social impacts of their purchases. For example, fair wages, labor, and cruelty-free products, which are products that don't test on animals. And finally, benchmarking ensures your organization is working to meet sustainability goals as defined by leadership. Oftentimes, goals are written into your company's climate action plan, but are never revisited or tracked. This is going to allow you to actually reference back to those goals and track the progress. Overall, by measuring and tracking these different aspects, your organization can better understand areas for improvement and decide on which aspects you want to commit to changing. Now, let's look at how the rules, and tools framework can help implement sustainable procurement goals. So the rules, and tools framework is a proven data collection and analysis method that guides all activities under the Empower Procurement Program. Derived from LBNL's work to provide the Department of Energy with insights to review and improve FEMP guidelines, rules, and tools allows a full assessment of an organization's set processes, practices, goals, and barriers. In the rest of this webinar, we will look at specific applications for each of the part of the framework in the context of benchmarking. So the following are things that the rules, and tools framework was designed to do: assess, identify, design, implement. So assess, perform in-depth analysis to record important rules, and tools for purchasing activity and sustainability policies across all departments. Identify with qualitative and quantitative data from assessments. Find key gaps in the process to reach sustainable purchasing goals. Recommend/implement. Determine possible measures to take. For example, assigning decision-making power to additional people, which would fall into the roles category. Adjust policies to match cost savings goals, which would fall into the rules category. Or purchase new software, which would fall into the tools category, which we will discuss today. Now that you've seen the rules, and tools framework and how it can impact successful benchmarking, we want to demonstrate each aspect. Okay, we're going to first talk about roles. When there is no one at your organization assigned to lead the benchmarking initiative, attempting to pursue any part of sustainable procurement becomes unorganized and inefficient. As aforementioned, it is critically important that someone at your organization has time within their role specifically carved out to plan, monitor, and assess your sustainable procurement processes. By doing so, they can focus on improving the various metrics your organization cares about and can streamline the process by ensuring that green purchases are approved by a single point person. Next is rules. When there are no clear rules or goals at an organization that strive towards sustainable purchasing, it is deprioritized and results in purchases that are neither as cost nor energy efficient as possible. One potential solution to this is creating formal rules, which are written rules defining sustainable procurement goals and measures. This way, there are clear goals related to sustainable procurement, and they are highlighted as an important piece of moving towards your organization's overall climate goals. If your organization does not currently have a climate action plan, consider whether one will be developed soon or whether it makes more sense to incorporate sustainable procurement guidelines elsewhere. Finally, tools. Many procurement systems do not allow customers to pull any information specifically about sustainable purchases and sustainability information. To see this information on many current procurement systems, customers would need to manually download a plain text file of a year's worth of purchases and manually search and categorize for certain products. Updating your platform can expedite this process with tagging features or options to flag green purchases. Not only will this save your company hours of time that could then be used to analyze these purchases, but it would also allow you to track and quantify sustainable purchasing. Great. So before we get into today's topics of rules, and tools, specifically tools, I'd like to review the last few topics before we dive into tools. There are three main challenges associated with roles. Organizations don't always have the capacity or resources to prioritize sustainability when purchasing. For an individual whose responsibilities include evaluating cost and function, sustainability can often be low on the list of priorities. Another challenge is buy-in from critical roles, whether that is a procurement officers or leadership. Individuals responsible for procurement can sometimes be in different departments and work independently of each other. So how do we overcome these challenges? To create a process that promotes sustainable procurement, an organization should appoint individuals to drive the effort and hold other departments accountable. This can happen in one of two ways. Dedicated procurement staff. In this case, these individuals would form a sustainable procurement department. The department's purpose is to lead sustainability initiatives and hold other purchasing departments accountable. In fact, the savings achieved by this dedicated procurement staff may itself fund the department. The second option is a procurement task force. This approach is to form a task force responsible for sustainable planning and procurement. In this approach can be initiated in the near term and if a procurement department is not feasible. Or it could be a precursor to a more established and more formal procurement department, if that is within your organization's longer term goals. Great, let's move on to rules. At any organization, there exists two types of rules. Formal rules are rules that are officially documented and referenced. Informal rules, on the other hand, are implicit rules that just drive decisions but are not officially written. Both of these rules inform one another and govern behavior in any and all organizations. So the first is the formal rules. An agency's formal written rules pertain to facilities, technologies, and policies. Some examples include executive orders, regulations, and agency policies. Internal directives pertain to things like purchasing supplies and formatting reports. These written rules tend to be easily referenced and are used to shape behavior in job roles. So what are informal rules and how do they affect formal rules? Well, by definition, implicit rules are rules that drive decisions but are not officially written. These rules are tacit knowledge about how things are done in an organization, and they dictate which formal rules have precedence in practice and what behaviors are expected or acceptable in any organizations. One easy example of this is a certain manager's personal preferences and priorities for his or her or their departments. Formal and informal rules are constantly at play. These rules exist in your organization currently. So how can we strengthen this existing framework to aid in sustainable purchasing? Once formal rules have been instituted, they need to continue to be amended and improved as necessary. It is only possible to see certain weaknesses in the policy after it has been implemented. Elements of the formal rules may be antiquated or no longer relevant. Rules that are commonly broken should be reevaluated, and following certain procedures may directly contradict another procedure. How do we strengthen informal rules if they are not documented or recorded? Well, in order to ensure that formal rules are being adhered to, it is also necessary to examine what informal rules are at play. Talking to employees whose behavior will influence the ability to establish, maintain, or implement a targeted change in the planning stages can resolve problems and generate ideas for better pathways to change. Instead of an announce and defend tactic regarding informal rules, it's important to engage in participatory ways to meet goals. Great, so this brings us to today's topic, our last topic in the series, tools. Next slide. So what is the tools framework? After identifying institutional change, rules, and roles, an agency should identify the tools and create an infrastructural context within which it can achieve its sustainability goals. A tool is defined simply as a technology, system, or process used to meet a need. An example of a tool could be a time card, which is a system for tracking and verifying work hours. An organization's tools support its standard operations and ensure consistency over the long term. Tools both allow and constrain behavior practices. Changes to institutional behavior must be supported by modified operational standards and tools. When an organization's tools are in opposition to change, the change is harder to achieve in the short term and less likely to endure in the long term. So how does this information apply to sustainability and behavior change? In the case of sustainability, a tool can be used to support and in some cases enable existing and new energy efficient behaviors. Knowledge about rules and roles should inform alterations to existing tools, as well as the creation or selection of new tools. As you develop or modify technology systems and process tools to meet site needs, keep in mind the rules and roles that are being targeted in efforts to achieve energy and sustainability objectives. What types of tools could help others at your facility do their jobs more easily and consistently while using less energy? Knowledge assembled about rules and roles, especially when gleaned from dialogues with relevant staff, can inform the selection of tools tailored to affect behavior changes. Tools can target the individual or the organizational level. Whether new or modified, tools should focus on behaviors, unique contexts, and desired outcomes. Tools are not interchangeable and must be carefully matched to situations. For example, a hammer and drill serve different purposes, obviously, and so do formal standard operating procedures, competitions, and real-time feedback. Likewise, just as both a hammer and drill are both essential to a project, changes to multiple behaviors involving tools may be necessary to achieve and maintain sustainability goals. Now, tools can be replicated. Yes, same slide, thank you. Tools can be replicated or customized based on successful examples. One way to identify helpful tools is to review the tools that successfully support desired behaviors in other departments or agencies and to replicate or customize those successful tools on your own site. Final principle to implementing tools. Tools should support desired behaviors and positive habits. Finally, for the desired behavior to become automatic and habitual, tools must support it. It's important to avoid the impulse to think about that technology alone will overcome unsustainable behaviors. So Planergy is a purchasing software that automates purchasing and procurement for its clients across the globe. One of Planergy's most exciting attributes is its sustainable procurement features. So let's take a look at what Planergy has to say about how to use this technology to achieve sustainability and procurement goals using their platform. You'll need to compare your shortlisted suppliers based on policy evidence, how well they've complied to standards, and their legal history. Score your potential suppliers against sustainability measures specific to what it is you are seeking to procure. Consider total life cost, labor standards, raw materials, transport, manufacturers, use, disposal, and wider social impacts. Give preference to those who provide sustainable products and choose their suppliers with sustainability in mind. So I think that Planergy is an excellent example of a tool to support change because it has also listed some of that social impact non-energy benefit as well. Okay, so the next tool is Ecomedes, which is an extensive supplier database with more than 10,000 brands. Using the Ecomedes platform eliminates time your team would have spent researching and collecting data on suppliers and products. The platform is user-friendly and allows you to search for products by category, thereby allowing it to be used across many departments within your organization. So now that we have discussed tools as well as roles and rules, and we've seen some examples, I'd like to open up discussion to the group. So tool specific, what procurement tools is your organization currently using? What does your procurement system provide? Does your procurement system provide information on the vendor's sustainability? Now, while we have two tools-focused discussions here, I'd like to remind everyone that this is the final webinar in the series. And so I encourage folks to discuss aforementioned topics as well. For example, rules, benchmarking in general. So I will leave the floor up to our attendees today.
As mentioned at the top, we would welcome your comment and discussion. We think that that'll make this a useful webinar for all. So what barriers have you encountered? What procurement tools are you currently using?
Also, now is a good time to put some questions in the chat.
Okay, looks like we have our first question. How can an organization optimize existing tools to improve their sustainable procurement?
Yeah, so I think first it's important to take stock and know what tools your organization is currently using and is paying for. Ensure you can adequately train your staff. And there should also be semi-annual or regular reevaluation of the company tools to see if it is meeting the needs and the behavioral changes as well. You might find that training a new staff member might unlock or remind you of features that your company has not been using within the tool. So that would be my advice for that.
Yeah, and to use the tool theme we have for today, you always need to tune up your tools to make sure that what you're paying for, what your company has subscribed to is, still of the best use to you. And as Samantha mentioned, you're using all the available features.
We have a comment, I believe.
Frank. Okay.
From Frank. We don't currently have sustainability criteria for vendors, but evaluate if different products meet sustainability requirements. Purchasing specifications. Much of this info comes directly from vendors, and there's challenges to validate sustainability claims. Yeah. I don't know if you are referring specifically to like HVAC equipment, but it does seem, I've had the same problems when validating HVAC equipment as well as like the tested sustainability or energy efficient claims versus the actual. So that is a challenge. And I wonder if even the products in the Ecomedes database or in that are marked as sustainable you will ever really truly know how sustainable the vendor's claims, how accurate the vendor's claims of sustainability are.
I'd agree. Yeah. And one quick plug, a sister project to this Empower Procurement project, which is also EPIC funded through the Energy Commission, is the California Energy Evaluation Hub. And soon will become available a consumer reports type online tool, which will provide some agnostic product data for 15 specific product categories. And it's apples to apples comparison to help buyers such as yourself. So, again, shout out to our main supporter, the Energy Commission, for supporting these research dollars to tackle some of these procurement challenges. And a tool like that, a consumer reports type tool, will help with some of that product information that you can trust. And the labs that are, doing the testing are Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, UC Berkeley Center for the Built Environment, and UC Davis Western Cooling Efficiency Center. So it's testing data you can trust for sure.
Yeah. So Frank, long story short is Empower Procurement is working on a resource for exactly that. Lab tested metrics to see how accurate those sustainability claims are. Okay, we have another comment from Ashley. This is great. Thank you. Well, thank you for attending. Do you support companies in developing a climate action plan? I'd love your input on how to approach companies and the steps they can take to develop one and gain leadership buy-in. That's excellent. Any tools or resources for this? I know the California Green Business Network offers recommendations and free green business certification, but they don't actually assist in creating CAPs. It's a very good question. I have found in my research, there's another, it's not the California Green Business Network, but it's the California, let me look this up while Renee, you can tell me your thoughts on this.
Sure, I'll chime in. Well, our project focuses specifically on the procurement piece. And as we all know, climate action plans cover different areas of sustainability. Energy is one, waste, et cetera. So one resource I'd recommend for the purchasing piece is the Sustainability Purchasing Leadership Council, SPLC. Some great boilerplate resources relating to procurement guidelines that could be a part of your climate action plan. And another maybe obvious idea is to connect with other, similar entities. If you're from a city, check out climate action plans from other similar sized cities. Same with school districts. And so check out what other entities are doing to, see how they crafted their climate action plan.
So I couldn't find the exact resource I was referring to, but I found a different resource that I have looked at before, and it's through Stop Waste, and it is a sustainable purchasing specific resource. It kind of is a guide, almost a template for creating an environmentally preferred purchasing model and policy. So I'm going to Slack that, or Zoom chat this to the group.
And I'll call out, I mentioned the SPLC, so that stands for Sustainable Purchasing Leadership Conference. Excuse me, I think I had the C wrong. But Fatima points out that there is a summit coming up on September 29th, and our partner LBNL will be presenting on that day. So check out the chat for that resource coming up in September.
Yeah, that's excellent. I'd like to also note that much of the content from today's webinar, as well as the previous, are taken from LBNL resources. So they will be they're an excellent resource for this subject.
Yeah, I'll give a quick plug and keep the questions coming. Questions, comments, suggestions coming. I'll give a quick plug right now that empowerprocurement.com is the planning space, resource library space for this project. You can go there now for resources currently available, and we'll be adding to it over the next year and a half or so. So bookmark empowerprocurement.com. Let's see, we've got our next question. What are some available tools for finding eligible service providers? Smitha, I can take a stab at this. Feel free to
Thank you.
chime in if you have anything else. But let's see, available tools. So this can change on the daily, as we all know. But since we have been working on procurement for a couple years now, there's well-known platforms that you've all heard of that focus on residential and small business. Angie's List is one, Home Advisor, Thumbtack. For larger buyers, we've come across Procurify, Jaeger, SAP, Ariba, and not to mention, the similar but different, focused on contracting platforms like Planet Bids and BidSync. And those are tools that can help streamline RFP process. So they're a little bit different. So you really need to take a look at what type of tool you're going for, so that you can get the best functionality from your tool purchase. I also came across a tool recently and had the pleasure of speaking with this company's founder yesterday. It's called Co-Procure, and this is for large institutional buyers to have access to cooperative purchasing contract language to essentially piggyback off of similar contracts. And they likened it to a Kayak or Expedia for cooperative purchasing contracts. So urge you to take a look at Co-Procure. The P is capital, which sounds like a great tool. If contract language has been a challenge for you, check out the way that other cooperative purchasing contracts are written. Okay, we've got active chat going. Yeah, again, thanks, Fatima, for providing that info about that workshop, September 29th. Hopefully that answered Calliope's question. Other questions, comments, questions about the Empowered Procurement Program, ways to get involved or enroll. Also happy to field those kinds of questions. I'm going to put in our website into the chat so you can get your bookmark ready.
Excellent. I'm loving the interactive vibe of this Zoom today. If you don't have questions, I still welcome you to maybe introduce yourselves. It seems like there's some lovely networking going on in the chat. So be lovely to hear where you work and how your role is related to sustainable procurement as well.
You bring up a good point, Smitha, because not everybody who does procurement have procurement in the job title. In fact, that's probably the minority of us. Yeah. Procurement's definitely not in my job title, and it's a big part of procurement research anyways, a big part of what I do at Energy Solutions. So something we've learned, again, with the rules, tools framework, in looking at the roles piece, part of the challenge is knowing who is out there buying these things and making the purchasing approvals, and hoping to, streamline that approvals process so it's not onerous. But, sometimes it's as simple as figuring out the procurement org chart for a specific organization, because the person doing the buying could be an administrative professional, it could be the energy manager, it could be an outside vendor. So that's an important step, is to figure out those roles and who is involved in procurement. Comment from Ashley: we work with some of the largest employers in Monterey Bay and would love to connect. Co-host something similar to this. That'd be great.
Love
Ashley,
it. Yeah.
Get in touch. Yeah, I'm gonna drop my email into the chat. We would love to work with Monterey Bay.
Okay, well, while if you are still interested in introducing yourself and telling us what you do, the chat will remain open. I am going to move on to some takeaways. So I'd like to wrap up this webinar, as well as this entire webinar series, with these takeaways. In order to achieve sustainable procurement goals, your organization must do the following. Assess the organizational rules, roles, and tools that shape the current context and may influence success in achieving these goals. Assessing the linkages amongst roles, rules, and tools and how they interact will help in implementing solutions for success. Roles. Just to reiterate the main takeaways from this roles, rules, and tools framework, roles are the people within an organization who are important to achieving and maintaining sustainability goals. Rules, the formal and informal rules that affect the workplace behavior. And finally, tools, workplace technologies, systems, and processes used to meet needs and shape roles and rules as well. And so implementing all three of these things will aid in benchmarking and ultimately help your organization achieve its sustainability goals. Thank you all for attending this and the other Empower Procurement webinar series events. This will be the final webinar in the Roles, Rules, and Tools series. Please visit the Empower Procurement website to stay up to date on any and all future events. Thank you all.